Chapter 13. After supper, Derek and Andy headed back out onto the porch. Andy snuggled up under the large pink quilt. She sat sideways with her shoulder against the back support of the swing, facing Derek and wearing a contented smile. I could so do this forever. Now that you're here, I mean. Derek grinned, trying to hide his blushing. Yeah, it's amazing. But you haven't forgotten what it's like back on the loft, have you? A yearning expression washed over her face. She cracked a trace of a smile. No, home will always be the best, she said with a tinge of sadness. Derek noticed her sliding her fingernail in and out of one particular groove on the back side of the bench. He'd not noticed it before, but how could he amidst the many etchings? We'll get home, Andy, I promise we'll get home. She slid her eyes over to him and extended her smile in a manner that Derek perceived as particularly patronizing. Come on, I know that look. What is it? She inhaled slowly, turned her face entirely toward him, and then dismissed the impulse, returning her eyes to the etching. Hey, what was that? She didn't respond. All of a sudden, I'm not privy to your thoughts, your ponderings. Since when? Since 1.5 years ago, Derek. Andy, that's not fair. You haven't been away from me for more than a few hours since the loft. She nodded slightly, appearing to remind herself of the fact. He touched her arm. Whatever it is, it seems big, he said in a solemn tone. Come on, we never kept secrets from each other. He sat up straight. So spill already. After all, who would you share it with if not me? He said magnanimously with one of his famous smiles. She blew away the little shavings her finger had made and then took another long, contemplative look at the etch pie insignia Jake had left for her several months ago. She dragged her tearing eyes away from the etching and then slowly raised them to meet Derek's. Jake, she said, I would have told Jake. Her bottom lip started quivering and, a short moment later, curled into a pathetic frown. Derek placed an open palm against her cheek, caressing her lips with his thumb. You really need to get something off your chest. Tell me what happened, he said. One particularly large tear streamed her cheek. It's all my fault, she sniveled. She pressed her cheek into Derek's hand. I told him not to go, but he said he had one last thing to do. I messed it all up by trying to stop him. You mentioned this a little earlier. How is it your fault? She raised her face to the sky and took in the incredible starry sight with a large inhale, letting out the air slowly. He and Garen went out one morning. It had something to do with proving that Pradicus and Malicious were the same person. I don't know. I never got the whole story on their outing. Jake came back that night without Garen. He said he found Garen sleeping in the darkness of one of the pathways inside the mountain. I don't know about that either, she chuckled. Actually, he said Garen hacked off a good 10 years of his life there in that darkness. She chuckled again and then sniffled. Derek cut in. Oh, with how badly Garen caught Jake off guard. It reminded me of your sheep biscuits that night in my basement, she said with a reminiscent smile. Derek grinned with a dismissive rolling of his eyes. Anyway, they found each other just inside the mountain. Garen told Jake to come back here for a few things while he was going to go farther into the mountain since the horsemen were gone out looking for the two of them. Jake said he had something to take care of before he went back to the mountain to find Garen. Long story short, we had a fight, and I told him I didn't care if I never saw him again. Then I said I thought he was stupid for risking everything and that I hoped he... She paused. Derek waited. She finished her sentence somberly. I said I hoped he met up with Lig Nardre, but I didn't mean it. A momentary silence fell between them. I couldn't leave things like that, so I tried to find him that afternoon. I knew where he was going, but didn't know when he would be there. He had this gold coin that he gave to me before he left. He said it would let me know when trouble was near, so I took it with me. I told Pradicus I was running an errand. I took the only horse he had and left. It was amazing how quickly that huge beast tracked me once I got near the mountain. I swear, it's like it knew I was coming. I got off the horse and ran into the ivy. I think I must have run 2 miles without stopping once. But everywhere I went, there was Lignor Dre, just a few seconds away. The sun was starting to go down, so I thought I'd have a chance to run for it in the darkness after the sun had set. The coin kept a steady glow, so I knew trouble was still near. After waiting for a couple hours and not hearing a thing from the dragon, I took off in a dead sprint. I knew there was a wormhole across the plains. That's where Jake was headed. I got about halfway there when I twisted my ankle. I fell hard and smacked my forehead. I didn't know how badly I was bleeding, but I knew I had to keep going. I found out later it wasn't all that bad. I got to a place where I couldn't put any more weight on my ankle, so I stopped to rest. I was terrified being out in the open with Lignor Dre on the hunt. I realized the coin could probably be spotted in the darkness, so I threw it as far away from me as I could in the other direction. I hopped and crawled for a little while until I started feeling sick. The giant bump near my temple was throbbing so badly. Every time I moved even a little bit in one direction or another, it screamed at me. I know I threw up a few times because of the pain, so I stopped hopping and then only crawled for what seemed like miles until I found this safe little ravine. I fell asleep for who knows how long, but what awoke me was a heated burst of air. When I opened my eyes, I didn't know where I was, and the sky was still dark. It all came back to me so quickly, though. I rolled over onto my stomach, and when I did, I saw something. I wasn't sure what, but something told me it was the Changus. In a sudden terror, I completely seized up. I didn't know if it was the Changus, but something was definitely in the ravine with me, not far in front of me. I tried to move an arm, a foot, anything, but Derek, I was petrified. It moved toward me using the shadows. Since hot breath had awakened me, I thought whatever it was had paused to inspect me as it traveled the ravine and then headed away from me. But that couldn't be right because this creature seemed to be coming toward me while making a strange sound every few seconds. I couldn't tell what woke me. There was no wind, no breeze. Fearing it was the Changus, I was sure I was seconds from death. I actually remember whispering to myself, "Don't breathe. Dear God in heaven, help me not to breathe." I caught glimpses of it, but only when parts of it passed through the moonlight. I didn't know if maybe it was a small bear or perhaps a mountain lion. Then the trembles started in. I couldn't move any part of me at will, yet my entire body shook like crazy. The thing crawled closer. A few steps, then a pause, then a few more steps, and another pause. I imagined it tearing into me, thrashing me against the walls, and I wouldn't be able to do a thing to stop it. I wanted to scream, to scare it off, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I was frozen. And then what if it didn't know I was there? If I did scream, would it attack me and kill me? Would it eat me? Or did it already know I was there, quivering like a cornered mouse, with no defense to fight it off? Had it already determined I was its next meal? I heard the stirring of the soil just a foot or so in front of me. The thing had become quiet. It stopped. It made that strange sound once more. Suddenly, I heard thunder, and it was really thunder from the storm that had been brewing, not the horsemen. It was about to rain, and all I could think at that moment was how this couldn't get any worse. I saw a crack of lightning shoot across the sky out of the corner of my eye. Then another one flashed somewhere between where I was and Broga Mountain. It lit up everything around me. I saw the thing in front of me. It was... She stopped to swallow hard and then contorted her face while shaking her hands and arms. "An ugly, furry, giant spider," she added in a high-pitched, grotesque voice. Good crevens, Derek. It had like half a dozen or more black eyes, each the size of the tip of my thumb, all attached to a big, round head and body. Its fangs hung down like a saber-toothed tiger's. I saw it and remember thinking it couldn't be real. It was way too big. I don't know where my voice came from, but I outright screamed like I never knew I could. I was suddenly free to move. I reached for anything and everything and grabbed a rock, then threw it at its face. The hit made this icky, soft-sounding thud, kind of like the sound you might get if you threw a baseball into a bale of hay. It was sickening. Then it spun this wet web around my leg and started dragging me. I clutched everything I could that was sticking out of the ground. I was screaming my fool head off. I got a hold of this little root and hung on. It seemed like my leg was about to be torn off as hard as that spider was pulling. The lightning flashed again, and I saw the tunnel web in the side of the ravine it was pulling me toward. It finally stopped pulling and then began to crawl on top of me. I swear I punched it in one of its eyes, and it broke open like an egg, but it was much thicker and gooier than a yolk. It backed off for a second. I took the opportunity to reel my legs up underneath me and then started yanking on the root as hard as possible. I pulled it loose. On the end of it was a big clod of dirt. I started swinging it at the spider's face. With every swing, it darted away and then lunged back at me. Finally, I threw the root at its face and the dirt clod exploded. I guess it blinded it. It backed off for a second, then made that noise again and rushed me. I put my arms across my face and screamed, waiting for its attack. It didn't. When I looked up, it was gone. Suddenly, its carcass fell from the sky and landed a few feet from me, making a sound like 10 pounds of wet beef hitting the ground. Just a single splat. No bounce, she said, shuddering at the memory. Right after that, out of the darkness, came this very deep growl, then a rush of heated air. All at once, the entire area lit up with a burst of fire from behind me, followed by a roar that deafened my ears. The roar sounded like a lion's roar, being blasted out from a cruise ship foghorn. I got to my feet and limped away from the dragon as fast as I could. It found me, Derek. After 18 months, it caught up to me. I remember wondering if it never really wanted to catch me, but was just playing with me. Feeling like if it had wanted to, it would have, and with certain ease. I fell down before I could get very far. It was too dark to really see the dragon well, but it just stood there as if following some preconceived plan. It was so enormous, like a strangely shaped cathedral. It must have been 50 or 60 feet tall. It blocked half the sky as it stood over me, with its wings stretched out and all majestic looking. I started scooting away, then made it back onto my feet and ran again the best that I could. But Lig Nordre stuck one of its feet in front of me, and I tripped over a claw. I got up again, and then, with a swipe of its foot, it knocked me across a clearing to another ravine. I felt like I'd broken every bone in my body after that landing. Oh, I hurt so bad. I was so tired, so worn out. I remember just rolling myself into that second ravine. Derek wore an incredibly intense look upon his face. Flabbergasted, he stammered out a few broken syllables and then decided to shut his mouth. After that, all I remember is the taste of blood in my mouth and how hungry I was. I don't even remember falling asleep or being sleepy. Derek, it was the most scared I've ever been in my life. But I do remember praying that Jake would find me. I guess not every prayer can be answered how we want. The next day I was awakened by Pradicus, who was holding Garen's satchel. He said he didn't know why it was left in the middle of the field, but that he wanted to keep it for him in case he'd lost it. I don't know what happened to Jake, but I think if I could have found him that day, I at least could have told him I was sorry for what I said. I thought Jake and Garen both made it back home until you pulled out his phone earlier. Come to think of it, I'm not even sure where Garen's from. He's been here so long, and being an Everil, who knows where he calls home? I never gave it any thought before now, but I knew where Jake was from and how badly he wanted to get home. Oh wow, I can't even go there. And then you saw his watch. She placed her hand over her face. This is going to drive me crazy. She looked over at Derek, who was still in shock over the spider story. You're serious? You were really attacked by a giant spider? She laid her head back and scanned the starry sky. After a moment, she turned her head toward him, and then her eyes slowly descended upon his smirk. Does it really matter? After all, I'm alive. I'm sorry. I'm just in shock. Can we forget about that? If we get a chance, will you show me its webbed tunnel? Are you really that dense? Has it occurred to you that spiders come from eggs? There's got to be more of them out there. No, I'm not showing you where the web tunnel is. I would say you had better be kidding, but I know you better than that. Derek grinned and then said, Okay, back to, Jake. What was it again? Geez, Derek, what is up with you? A girl might feel a little less transparent around you if you actually took the time to listen to her. Derek rolled his eyes. Whatever, yeah. A giant spider, he said skeptically under his breath. She turned her head so she was looking perfectly straight forward. And there she sat, with a saddened expression. Hey, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, he said, briefly resting his hand on her knee. I'm sorry. I can be such an idiot sometimes. She slid her eyes toward him. And a jerk, she said, shaking her head. Still such the boy, for goodness sakes. I can tell you're an only child, believe me. Or maybe if I'd been the one here by myself for a year and a half, I'd have little patience for me too. I'm sorry. I'm still the same me from yesterday, the same juvenile little teenage brat. All right, I guess I'm not being fair, but can you at least try to act just a little bit older? She asked with a diminutive wince. He smiled and then sighed, gazing across the starry heavens and then landing his eyes back onto hers. Look, there's a rugged older guy deep down in here somewhere, perhaps a masked superhero, and debonair billionaire type waiting to be discovered and chiseled out by the right girl, with the right hands. He placed his hand onto hers. Andy grinned and then turned away, rolling her eyes, unsure of why she felt a sudden blushing. She rotated her head back toward him, wearing a smile that shouted she'd just been slapped across the face with a generic line from a sappy romance novel. Why do I feel like I'm 14 all over again? She giggled. Derek joined her in a chuckle and then squeezed her hand. No one makes me laugh like you do. A sudden comprehension washed over his face for her last comment. That was a slam, wasn't it? You just slammed me, he said, continuing in his laugh. She stammered. I didn't mean it as a slam, she said lightheartedly. I was just meaning that... She paused for a moment. Well, I just mean that... She then looked him straight in the eye and conceded with a laugh. Okay, you got slammed. Derek smiled quietly and then shot a gaze straight into the brightness of the moon. The moment sharply turned. A serious tone settled between them. What? Okay, you can't take the blame for Jake, Andy. Promise me you'll try to let that go. He released her hand and then stroked her arm with a finger. Promise? Andy nodded. Well, it feels a lot better having told someone. She then took Derek's hand and placed it within both of hers. Especially you. The comment produced an air of worth in Derek's expression that Andy had never before witnessed. The two of them shared a quiet moment within each other's eyes. So now what? Derek asked. Now we trust. Derek decided to leave that one alone and was more than content to sit quietly with Andy for a while longer. The moon hung low in the southern sky, beaming in a bold brilliance, unmatched by any evening either had seen back home. Andy pulled out a ruffled paper scrap from beneath the quilt. She unfolded it and then began studying it under the low light from the oil lamps at either end of the swing. Expecting that she'd share in its significance, Derek simply waited. What have you got there? He finally asked after a few quiet minutes. Nothing, she murmured without looking up. He shrugged it off for a few more minutes, taking in the night sky. He turned to her again. Really? What is that? I told you. Nothing. Come on, let me see. She sighed and then held it out. It's nothing you'd be interested in. He snatched it away from her. What is this? A page out of a book? Okay, so you've had a look. Now can I have it back? Wait, what is it? Is this a page from the Bible? Just give it back, Derek. It's not like you'd know what to do with it. He handed it back, deciding not to hassle her about it. So where's the rest of it? He turned, giving her a skeptical glare. Did the dog eat it? You're not funny. It's all that's left of the Book of Romans. So what? You just reread the same page over and over. She held it against her chest. I can't get enough of it. I've memorized every word on both sides of this page. How did you end up with a Bible anyway? That doesn't seem like something you'd usually come across at this point in history. Oh, but a gel-based solar-charged cell phone does, she retorted. Okay, point taken, he said with a partial grin. I guess I'm wondering why someone would bring one with them. I mean, we came so suddenly. I guess that leads me to assume someone had to have been reading it when they were taken. He thought of the mundane silliness of it all. Come on, really. Who sits around and reads the Bible? He added with a scoffing tone. She quickly threw him a dim-witted look, holding up her page. Besides you, he said, sniggering and shaking his head. Geez, I don't see why or how anyone could slave over the same dreary thing day after day. Well, I hope you at least get something out of it, he said rather patronizingly. Whatever, Derek. Like I said, it's nothing you'd be interested in or understand. But how can anyone be interested in it? It's just a bunch of thou shalts. Who needs it? She ignored him, returning to her reading. Okay, what do you get out of it? Don't worry about it. No, really, what keeps you reading the same old thing over and over? You don't really want to do this, Derek, just never mind. Look, I'm intrigued, he said, mocking her earlier use of the word. Intrigued? She said with a grin. We're back to that, are we? Look, if you don't want to tell me, fine. I just thought you might want to share... Share what? She interrupted. Share something precious to me that you just as quickly tossed to the wind. No thanks. Don't get all bent out of shape. I didn't mean to step on any toes. You still don't get it, Derek. You've only been here a few hours. You're still the same you who ate peaches in the barn yesterday. Well, I'm not. I'll never again be that naive person who sat in the haystack with you. I've had to search for answers, for understanding. And when those things didn't reveal themselves, I had to look deeper. I had to look down deep into myself. And what did I find? I found an emptiness that desperately needed filling. That's when I came across the Book of Romans. Back then, it was just a slim, vinyl-bound book with printed notes and comments on how to read and understand Paul's writing. And nobody even gave it to me, Derek. She looked away briefly, taking a moment to revisit the memory. I came upon it by accident, trying to ditch the rain, and there it was, safely tucked under the cleft of a rock, as if it were waiting for me to find it. She looked up at him, pausing as tears filled her eyes. Then she continued in a slow, solemn tone. I found it on the very day I gave up on you. It was the only time in my entire life. She sniggered, cracking a small, transparent smile. Yeah, my long-lived 18 years, right? Anyway, it was the only time I actually came to the end of myself, Derek. And God was there to meet me. I poured myself into the pages and used the comments and helps to gain understanding. As I read each day, I found not only answers, but truth. The words spoke life to me, and each time I read through it, I discovered something completely new, like I'd never read it before. I can't wait to read the rest of the Bible. I don't even know how many more books there are. Then out of the blue, Garen walked by and asked what I was reading. I told him. He suddenly took tremendous interest in me. He sat down and asked me to tell him about it. Well, after I did, he leaned toward me and said I was right on track. He started spouting off all this stuff about faith and difficulty, so I asked him to slow down and explain what he was saying. He said something I'll never forget. It's just around the corner. I asked him what was around the corner. He said, what you need to sustain you. He said God puts these promises along our way and we can tell when one is near because the road starts getting tough to walk. In fact, he said he can tell by the look of almost any person how far away or close they are to that next promise. He said he's seen it over and over again. It's always during that last bit when people start to give up and they don't realize what they need is just around the corner. He said that's what hope is, according to the book I held in my hands. Then he showed me. It was right there, Romans chapter 5. She took note of Derek's unmoved expression and sighed. I just wish you could show that you cared even a little bit. I mean, you don't have to be an Everall to understand there's more to life than just what we see here. You don't have to be a... what? Sorry, an Everall is someone who lives a very long time. It's kind of like in the days of Adam and Enoch and them. For some reason, the gene re-emerges after several generations. Everall's bodies age much slower than the average person. Derek groaned rather dismissively. That's such hogwash. What have they been feeding you all these months? I don't expect you to understand any of what I'm saying. That sounds a little demeaning, he snapped back. But I'm not offended. You know what, Derek? I'm the one who got the raw end these past 18 months, yet somehow through it all, I can see how I came out on top. She paused, coming to a realization. I've never quite thought about it like this, but when we get back, I get to pick up where I left off with so much more than I had before. The tinge of a gleeful titter sparked in her voice. Oh, I can't wait. Derek, I'll get to see my little darlings again and Mum and Dad. Wow, it's going to be so good to see everyone. She summed it up with a weighty sigh, then turned her attention to the vastness of the star-swarmed sea, blanketing the night above them, her thoughts centered on the sheer goodness of her Lord. God has been here every step of the way with me. My old life seems so empty now when I think back on it. What if you go back to what your life used to be without all these changes? Derek asked. What if you don't remember anything about any of this? Andy looked at him with utmost sincerity. If I knew that going into it, I'd stay here. There's no way I want to separate myself from Jesus and all he's become to me. But that's not really a consideration. I've been over this so many times with Pradicus. He's got to be sick to death of explaining it. Let's see. How'd he tell me to say it? Under the skin is my measure within. What that means is, as I develop and mature in my own progression of time, I'll continue to advance despite how time bends around me. Wait, you're saying that if I were to go back by myself, then return in a week or two, I wouldn't skip over time and somehow become older or younger? No, because time as you know it only advanced a week or two. Well, what about you? Would you be the same age? Here's where it gets tricky. You'd leave my time plane, but I would continue to age as normal. But the next time I see you, I might have lived 20 years in my time plane, while yours only advanced 2 weeks, meaning I actually lived 20 years while you were gone. And then if we went back together at that point, I'd almost be as old as my parents, and you'd still only be 2 weeks older, but only because I actually lived those 20 years. It's the same reason I'm 18 months older right now. Derek gave thought to everything she just said. So you'd actually consider staying here? You still don't understand. This is my life now. I've moved forward, and my past will always be a part of me. Don't get me wrong, I desperately want to get back to my family, but if it meant losing all that I've gained here, meaning losing what I've learned about who I am, who Christ is, I choose to stay. Christ is Jesus, by the way. In Romans, Paul addresses Jesus as Christ. Probably already knew that just saying. Anyway, she looked down at her ragged page. That's what this means to me. Derek smiled softly. That's cool. Wow, you so are not the same person I knew this morning. Andy exhaled a belabored sigh that waned away into a contemplating pause, followed by soft chuckle. I can't tell you how strange it is to hear you say that. It's such a long time ago for me. Like maybe that entire part of my life was just a dream. I can't imagine what things look like from sitting where you're sitting. She paused. Well, that's not true. I guess I can. But you'll never know what it looks like from where. I'm sitting, will you? Honestly, I hope I never have to, he said somberly. I've learned so much about how people lived without modern conveniences. It makes me sick to think how spoiled I used to be. I feel it's much more rewarding to live this way. There's an appreciation for the small things we take for granted, like roasted duck. We had to hunt for that little guy. It's not like running down to the local marketplace and picking up dinner for 6 so we can make it home in time for television. Geez, I might never watch television again. I love living like this. The world moves slower. We talk. We get to know, really know one another. And God is so good. It's amazing how much I've had to lean on his provision. What an opportunity for him to reveal himself. She yawned. I know we don't have air conditioning. I have actually missed that. But most of the months have been okay. She yawned again. So, you ready to call it a day? Derek's eyes traveled the horizon, followed by the sky. I'm not tired. It's only 8 o'clock. I've only been up for 13 hours. He felt a reciprocating yawn stir and begin to well up, but ceased it in his throat before it could engulf him. Well, I've been trying to keep busy since sunup and of course didn't sleep a wink last night, Andy said, recalling the mixed feelings she encountered each time Pradicus ventured off to wait for Derek. Derek replied with a somewhat patronizing nod. His indifference tore at her. Geez, Derek, really? Her sudden shift in tone fell on hollow ears. I just told you I've been trying to keep busy all day. That doesn't mean anything to you. And you have no idea, no concept of why I wasn't able to sleep last night. He shook his head nonchalantly. Have you gotten denser over the time I've spent here, or is my memory just that bad? I guess I've forgotten what a piece of work you can be sometimes. Huh? He said quite obliviously, trying his best to follow the last thought. Good Lord, what is the world coming to? Every month, this being the umpteenth time, Pradicus went off for 2 days. Oh, to find me, he interjected, and probably with more cheer than would have been appropriate. Andy rolled her eyes. Unbelievable, she muttered. She glanced away for a second and then swung back around with a fierce look. I gotta tell you, Derek, it wasn't easy all those times, wondering if I was ever gonna see you again, dealing with the downside of hope. Wow. Really? Wow? That's all you have to say? Do you know what I've been through this whole time? I've changed. I've grown up. And you? You're a jerk. You haven't changed a bit. You're exactly the same as you were the last time I saw you. She stopped, realizing how ridiculous a statement it was. She held him in her glare until, crease by crease, her firm visage shaped into a half-relenting grin. He chuckled. Yeah, I was gonna say... You didn't deserve that, she said, cutting in. Well, you kinda did, but... Yeah, okay, I get it, he said, placing a hand on her arm. You gotta know, though, it's so out of my universe to put any of this together. She nodded with yet another yawn. I know, it's still dizzying, even after 1.5 years. Derek's suppressed yawn finally won out, overtaking his every effort to restrain it. He grunted. Now you've done it. There'll be no going back from that one. Well, he conceded, it's not like I'm going to be able to grab a soda and a slice of pizza and fall asleep watching TV. Oh, that sounds really good right now, she said, licking her lips. With wings and buttermilk ranch. Oh, I'm so all over that, and not those wimpy mild wings. I'm talking hot, she said with a declarative nod. Nuclear, they said together. Both broke into a fit of laughter. Derek realized her laugh had changed, even if only minutely. It seemed to him that it had, in a sense, matured. Yeah, see, he said, putting aside the observation, you really do miss the good stuff back home. She held a quiet gaze for another few seconds. Seriously, I can't tell you how delicious that sounds right now. I wonder how long it's been since I've actually sat and thought about pizza, not to mention wings and a soda. How about we make it a date, Derek said. Tomorrow night, after we get back, we'll get some pizza, nuclear wings, and a couple sodas, and then together watch a good chick flick. The certainty in his tone struck her, the ease with which he discounted the unforeseen, the unfathomable, so unfamiliar, so confident. And of course, he continued, I'll spring for some chocolate ice cream, and I'm talking the good stuff with hot fudge, nuts, and whipped cream. But only after you catch up with your family, that is. She sat forward, frightfully aware of the mounting air of hope. How many times had she promised herself she'd never return to that place where notions like faith and possibility are exchanged for words like impeded, thwarted, and despondency? Would things be different this time? Could they be? Derek, I don't know if I can give in to that again. If anything happens, anything at all, preventing our return, she said, pausing, gravely concerned for her emotional soundness. She closed her eyes. You just don't know, Derek. You really have no idea. He took her by the hand and held it firmly. Hey, it's not the same as it was before, he said, smiling gently. I'm actually here with you this time. That's got to mean something. Her eyes held to his without release. Let me tell you something. The last thought I had, hanging onto that beam, had nothing to do with bringing you back. It had everything to do with being with you and making sure you weren't alone. The apprehensive frown she wore slowly stretched into an optimistic grin. Look, I fully plan on making it back. It may not be tomorrow, but it'll be soon. I just know it. She glanced away, reflecting on his thoughts back on the beam. He released her hand for a purposeful gesture. Besides, I have to make it back for Mindy Blake. Her tone quickly swelled into annoyance. I could have gone a lifetime without hearing that name ever again, she said through gritted teeth. Mindy asked me to clean up the audio from her video of Principal Herring. You know, the Teacher of the Year interview she's submitting for Channel 6 News. Well, tomorrow they're previewing it at a school assembly, of course, in Her Highness's honor, don't you know? Word is she's already prepared a shocked acceptance speech, even though they don't announce the winner for 3 more months. Like the evil witch even has a chance. Give me a break. Oh my crackers, what have you done? Andy charged with a cynical squint. Well, you know that audio recording from about 2 years ago that we've kept under wraps? Come on, you have to remember Principal Herring the brownies. A blank stare washed over Andy's face. She began to wonder what other memories her 12th century excursion might have stolen from her. I cannot believe that this, of all things, has somehow fallen out of your brain. Okay, fine. You at least have to remember how she always confiscated students' sweets, especially brownies during Oral Health Week, and then stuffed her face with them after lunch was over. She shook her head with a detached smirk, somewhat surprised at how her memory was failing her. Well, I suggested double chocolate with laxatives, but you came to school with double chocolate, double laxatives, stating how you were gonna get her good. Andy's jaw dropped as she sat lingering in suspense. Jenny, her disgruntled aide, took your recorder, voice-activated, mind you, or sound-activated in this case, and planted it behind the toilet. Any of this ring a bell yet? Her face contorted as if reaching for a faraway memory. Well, it wasn't but an hour or so before she was spotted heading down the hall back to her office in the I have to go now quick step. Andy burst out with a short giggle and then slapped a hand over her mouth while her eyes jolted open like saucers. It wasn't all the cussing that had us on the floor laughing when we finally listened to the recorder, but your comment about the Tommy gun. A screaming laughter ensued, but only for a moment as recall instantly dawned. Caught in the midst of a full-on noiseless belly laugh, she gasped so profoundly it completely stole her breath as her frenzy continued breathlessly. Yeah, now you remember, Derek affirmed. Well, I laid her Tommy gun over the background music that Principal Herring handpicked specifically for one part of the video. Her hysterics continued, now combined with foot stomping and tears. She's gonna drop a brick. I mean, considering the expletives on the recording, we can all pretty much imagine the theatrics that took place. She reached out and grasped his arm. And you want to go back? She managed through winded breath. I wouldn't miss it for the world. She gained some control. You are so dead, she replied. Wait a minute. Didn't we get her cussing you out on that recording? Yeah, but she couldn't prove anything. I'm the first person she points at for everything, don't you remember? Well, she's gonna know it was you after the recording plays on the video. He shrugged his shoulders. She's got it coming. And the best part is, it'll be one of those life-shaping moments psychologists talk about. You know what I mean. Some mumbo-jumbo about all of us having 5 or 6 defining or life-impacting moments that affect us forever and ever. This is gonna be one of those, he said, chuckling maniacally. You are horrible. But she so deserves it, he said, feeling satisfied. Well, I know you well enough to know you're gonna do what you want to do. That's right. My ways are set. I'm too far gone. Well, I can say life is so much more interesting with you around. She eyeballed the heart with his name carved into its center, then glanced back at him. A peculiar smirk, unfamiliar to Derek, crept into a contemplating grin. What does that look mean? He asked. Never know, I'm going to bed. Thanks for the laughs, really. I very much needed that tonight. She stood up, offered a goodnight smile that sent Derek's stomach into knotted fits, and then entered the cottage. Wow, he said, rubbing his eyes amidst a drawn-out yawn. He then stood up after a minute of reflection and followed her in. Fighting to keep his eyes open, Derek laid a sheet out on the floor of one of the upstairs rooms and then collapsed on it. He was lost in slumber within seconds. Later that night, he visited the dark den again, except this time the room had called to him in his dreams. He found himself standing in front of the small door. The eeriness, the scent of something familiar, the unfriendly presence, all of it met him there. He looked over his shoulder into the deeper darkness, to where the journaling desk sat. A shadow hovered over it, and as his eyes adjusted, he recognized it as the silhouette of a man. He was writing. Derek's overall impression was that this was not Pradicus. A small bump from the other side of the small door stole of his attention. His heart leapt in fear. He quickly cast his eyes towards it. Listening to the pounding of his pulse within his ears, he wondered if a part of him knew what lay in wait for him. The door narrowly moved back and forth, as if being stealthily tested by whatever loomed on its opposite side. Derek snuck a peek back over his shoulder to find the corner empty this time. His focus returned to the undersized gateway, but gateway to what or from what? Clenching his fists in unrest, he thought of turning away from it, but then knew he couldn't, or, more importantly, wouldn't. Something was awry, and though he felt terror teetering at the edge of his emotions, he couldn't explain the sudden allure. He felt for his amulet, probing the tips of his fingers about where it normally lay, suddenly aware of and stumped by its absence. He drew in what courage he could gather with a weighty inhale, swallowed hard, then took one short shuffling step towards the small door, and then abruptly halted as the pungent stench of death filled his nostrils. Not malodorous decaying remains, but simply death, an unexplainable smell which captures the very absence of life itself. It suddenly registered with him, the familiar scent. He'd caught a trace whiff of it in the cavern. It was the underlying, almost indiscernible odor which lurked beneath that of the musty lake water and putrid human remains. Pressing on beyond the trepidation, he reached his hand out towards the small door when suddenly the entire wall was met with a fierce slam from the other side. The room shook violently. Derek jumped. Then there was another slam. Derek jumped again. Dust and wood particles fell from the ceiling while cracks splintered the wall. A final brutal smash blew a gaping hole in the wall 6 feet wide, floor to ceiling, sending the door whistling across the room. The explosive surge threw Derek aside. He landed on his hip and shoulder and slid several feet across the wood floor. Erdi. Quickly sweeping the dust and debris from his face with a forearm, he gazed in horror at what entered the room from the other side. It was a grey rider upon his enormous, terrifying horse. Suddenly, an emerald green light cut the darkness and burned brilliantly from the amulet which the rider wore around his neck. A deformed face glowed radiantly among the cast shadows. It appeared to him at first as Jake's face, but as his vision sharpened, he gasped in stunning horror to discover it was his own. The realization turned his stomach so pointedly that the startle jarred him right out of his sleep. He sat up, sweating, panting, wondering what could have possibly stirred him so, for his memory served no recollection. He closed his eyes after taking a minute to settle, then lay down again and fell back to sleep. Chapter 14.